Hey there, you beautiful souls. Welcome to the Authentic You podcast, where we dive deep into the power of authenticity and the journey to rediscovering your true self. I'm your host, Kristina Holle, and I'm beyond excited to embark on this transformative journey with you. Ever wonder how authenticity impacts relationship, career choices, and overall well-being? Well, wonder no more, because the Authentic You is your compass on this incredible adventure. So what can you expect from our show? Well, picture this: heart-to-heart conversation, inspiring stories, expert insights on the importance of authenticity. We're going to tackle the masks we wear, the societal expectations we navigate, and guide you back to the essence of who you truly are. The Authentic You podcast, where real stories meet real talk. Get ready to shine your light and live authentically. I'm your host, Kristina Holle. I'm a former corporate junkie turned into a transformational coach, an author, speaker, and the founder of the Authentic You Coaching. I have over 25 plus years senior HR leadership experience, but I left it all behind to help individuals like you to reconnect with their authentic selves, to overcome fear, and design a life and career that they truly love. Welcome to the Authentic You Power Talk. I'm really excited to be here today. And I really want to talk about the stories that we tell ourselves. And when we identify that we are telling ourselves these stories, you'll be quite surprised how you will start to see you've been getting in your own way. So for those who don't know me, my name is Kristina Holle. I am the founder of the Authentic You Coaching. I am a speaker, I am an author, and a performance coach. And I really help people tap into their inner potential. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the stories that we actually tell ourselves. And I know this firsthand because I was telling myself many stories well before I got to this point in my life in order to really feel like I could be successful or I could fit in. I will just start with my story a little bit. When I was a little girl, I used to really believe that anything was possible, but I did come to realize that my life wasn't like everybody else's life. My life was very traumatic and very dark. And with that being said, I still really wanted to have such success in my life. And it's interesting because through all that darkness, somehow, some way, somehow, I survived and I got through, and I was actually extremely successful. I broke a lot of the narratives I always said to myself, I was never going to be a statistic. I was actually going to be really successful in my life. And I did that. And the way that I actually did that is that I started to imagine a life that I felt as though I really deserved. And some of the stories were bold and that I was telling myself, the dreams, the adventure, the success. The story was, no matter how bad the situation is, I'm not going to let that define who I am. I am going to be this brave little courageous girl and really make change in my life. And I didn't even know what I was doing at that point. I was this little bright light in the middle of the darkness, and yet I still seemed to find my way. But the way that I did it at that particular time, the story that I told myself, and it worked for that time, so I'm not going to fault it. I really learned that in order to really be successful and get out of the dark situation that I was in, I was going to have to prove that my worth. These were narratives that I told myself. In order to be successful and be that light in the middle of all this darkness, and I still have people to this day that really wonder how I got myself out of those situations. I had to tell myself stories about who I was going to be. And it worked for that particular time in my life when I was surviving and I was getting through this stage in my life that I had a lot of shame around. And when I really learned that how powerful I was now at the age of I'm almost 50 now, and looking back and being like, wow, I can't believe I did that as a little girl. I have to honor the story that I told myself at that point. I really told myself that I wasn't going to be a statistic. I wasn't going to let my circumstances define me, and I was going to keep going. But as I grew older, these stories started to shift. And the stories that I started to tell myself is like, I need to fit in, I need to prove my worth. And that meant constantly going on this journey of scholarships, going all the way to university and doing everything for everyone else just because there was something missing inside of me. And I didn't realize that at this point. They say that hindsight is 2020 when you can look back at your life and go, oh, that's why these things happened. But I'm here to tell you that there was something missing. I was looking for the external world to really tell me who I was. That's why I was proving my worth. And because I didn't believe I was worthy inside. I was like this little girl who was very neglected and very deprived. And so what I did, the story I told is that I shifted and I went all in for the external world to tell me who I was. And that meant through scholarships, through degrees, through promotions, through big jobs, getting certifications. I did it all. And I didn't even realize that I was on this path of, honestly, I would say self-destruction. And I think many of us do it. But the path, I have to honor it because it did get me out of a really tricky situation. But we have to realize when we're self-reflecting, is this narrative that you're telling yourself, is it still serving you well? I was in corporate for 25 years in senior HR leadership roles, and I lived by these new narratives that I told myself. They drove everything that I did. They drove every action that I did, my decisions, and unknowingly, and I think I'm not alone. That's why I want to have the conversation about the importance of authenticity. I was building my ego, and the ego is what built these walls around my authentic self. I was protecting myself. I was putting these walls up because I really was developing the mask or the armor quite nicely. But inside, my authentic self was hiding. It was hiding. I believe that people would not like me if I showed my authentic self. And my authentic self shows up now because I can talk about this stuff. So when I talk about my backstory, it took me 30 years to talk about this. This is not something that I just showed up. You know, there's people out there who have a tendency to overshare, and that's another coping mechanism. I was like the vault. Nobody knew any of this stuff had occurred. And these walls that I put around me were like a fortress, but I was hiding my authentic self. And one day I really came to realize that the story that I was living was not my story. I was living the way that I thought I should live in order to feel successful, in order to feel love, because our society has done a great job with teaching us that love is conditional. Love is not conditional. Love is love. It's there. It's a part of your makeup. It's who you are. But when you are thinking that you have to prove yourself to people to get, now I realize, breadcrumbs in order to feel value, in order to feel worth, that really is an eye opener. And once I started to realize this, and the way that I did that was I wrote my book, my first book. And when I started writing this book, I really came to realize that this book allowed me to start to open up, allowed me to start showing parts of myself. I really started to integrate who I was. I started to come to a place where I realized I don't need to prove myself to anybody. But we have to understand that we do tell ourselves stories and whether or not those stories are serving us now. So I chose to rewrite it. I chose to rewrite the story that's going to be much more integrated and much more interesting at the end of the day. Stories that we tell ourselves have immense power. They define how we actually see the world. They allow us to have joy in our life and not have joy in our life. And when we understand that, we can show up and really believe what is possible. But the truth is, not all stories serve us. And some of us hold us back. Some of them actually whisper lies of limitations, and others will light us up and really put us on a path of unlimited potential. And when we understand that, when you understand that you actually have the power to do that, if you can put down, I had a client yesterday I was working with, and we were talking about masks. If you can put down the masks, or within my case, the armor, then you can really start to live life. That doesn't mean you go out foolishly and get yourself in positions where you're going to get hurt. You'll learn discernment. You'll learn how to gauge your story, the path that you want to go on, the life that you want to create. But I think that when we understand that we could be holding on to this armor, the old story of who we are to this day, and it may not be serving you anymore. It may be actually at the core of your limitations, the whispering lies that you're not ready. Oh, you better show up. You better show them that you deserve to be here. Or, oh, you better fit in. They're not going to like you if you show up like this. These are all lies. They're stories that you've picked up along the way that either made you feel as though you weren't good enough and you had to fit in. So I would ask yourself these questions. Are your stories that you're telling yourself to this day, do they bridge you to your dreams, or are you erecting walls? I want you to think about that. Do they bridge you to where you go, where you want to go? Are you telling yourself, I'm a rock star, I can make this, I can do it, I can get there? That's bridging. Because when we think about that story, I want you to reflect of when you've done that before. Maybe it's you tried out for a team that you didn't even realize that, all right, I'm going to give it a go, maybe I'll make it. And then you made it. That's you proving to yourself. That is a story that we want to continue. But there's also the stories that exist in us that where we erect walls, we put these walls, we put the armor up that stop us from really going where we want to go. And when we understand that, that is really limiting. I didn't realize that I didn't just have armor, I had a fortress on me. And that's why when I tell stories that are amusing now, because people are like, whoa, we were so intimidated by you. I'm like, what? Because my authentic me was like, I'm so fun and awesome. But my wall was saying, no, don't mess with me. I'm very intimidating. I'm no nonsense. I'm the general. But the beauty of it, that was based on the old story. And now the new story is about integration and just being all in me, all parts of me, the good, the bad, the ugly, but all parts of me. And I share this story because I really think there's such value when you can sit in a place where you are you and you understand that the stories that you're telling yourself are your stories. They're not other people's stories. They're not about rejection or judgment or thinking that, hey, I'm not good enough. The idea, this really, I don't know what speaks to you, but this really speaks to me. The idea of proving yourself, of your worthiness to be somewhere, to be a head coach, to be the best person in class or on the team, that you have to prove that. That is not a healthy narrative. We can prove things to ourselves. That's cool. But if you're proving it to other people, when my backstory, the narrative was like, I was not going to be a statistic. That actually worked out well for me because it got me out, but it doesn't work out for me now, right? That's why it needs to be let go and evolve. Stories do evolve, but you have the power to change them. Are your stories empowering you? Or are you rooted in fear and doubt? And there's no judgment here. There's absolutely no judgment. But this is about you stepping into you. This is about you understanding who you are. If we are scared to make moves or we're believing stories, little things like this, think about this one. Don't go, oh, you don't have a coat. Don't go outside. You're going to catch a cold. And in our family, it was like, you're going to get a cold in your back. You catch a cold through your back. Where that comes from, I have no idea. Or money doesn't grow on trees. These are simple little stories that whatever your background was, you probably heard them around you. And it doesn't mean that there was bad intent. It just means that they were how people survived, right? The little things. For me, I had to really rework stories around what success is and what strength is. Vulnerability is a strength, but I was not raised that way. I was raised that stiff upper lip, you grind, you get through it. And when you understand that is extremely powerful for me. Last year, 2024, when someone asked me what was my word of reflection, it was vulnerability. I'm putting myself out there that I've never put myself out there. I have been really good with that armor, and the armor was the one thing that protected me. So here I am jumping out, trying to get myself in a situation where I can put the armor down, which I'm doing now. And that's why we're talking about this stuff. I'm going to bring Mojo up and see what Mojo has to say. Always great insights. Hey, how's it going?
You're just telling my story, man. Nail me to the wall. I'm like, yes.
So good. So good. Yes. Big yes, little yes.
Totally. Oh my gosh. So the parallels are uncanny. But your circumstances are way different than mine, but the experience is very similar. The emotional journey that you've been on is so similar to mine. And so I just, all I can say is yes to everything you said. And I not just yes because it's a great concept. Yes, because it is my story. My story overlaps with your story in so many ways. And I'm finding that, like you, it has taken me a lifetime to find out that what I thought was helpful, or that was going to get me what I wanted, or was going to make people like me, all those things, I had it wrong. I was living under a false pretense of what that took. So here's this phrase that came to me recently, Kristina, and I think you'll dig this. And it's a concept we're familiar with, but the words that came to me just made sense. And it's, if I become someone I'm not, so that you will love me, the only person you love is someone I'm not.
Right. Think about that.
My
We
gosh,
just got chills on that. Oh,
yeah. It's a truth. And I've been doing that my whole life. I've been adjusting. In fact, my counselor said that my superpower as a teenager was adaptability, because there was so much chaos and confusion and pain, suffering, that I adapted to avoid being imploded. She said it probably saved your life, Joe, or saved you from a life of drugs or crime or who knows what.
Right.
But unfortunately, that superpower, which has served you so well, you continue to do that, but now you do it in adult relationships where you're not in any danger. Right. And as a result, you don't really show who you are. You're not authentic. You're changing like a chameleon to fit the environment, which makes everybody like you, but that doesn't make them love you, because they're not loving you. They're loving who you're presenting yourself to be in any given situation. And she said, and you're really good at it, but that's something you have to leave behind. And I'm like, but no, it's my friend.
And I was so good at it. It's the one thing.
Right. What do you mean I have to leave my superpower behind? You've got to be kidding. Right. The
you
one
want
thing
me
I'm
to
really
be
good
vulnerable?
at.
Oh,
the one thing I'm really good at. You want me to stop doing that?
Like,
come on. What kind of counselor are you? But she's absolutely right. And I think that's where this phrase comes. If I become someone I'm not, so that someone else will love me, the only person they love is someone I'm not. That's not what I want. Right?
So good. And when you start to realize that, it's all a facade, right? So I literally was saying this to a client yesterday. She was talking about her relationship. And when we were going through the mask, she's like, oh my gosh, I have identified, I've been behind this mask, this people pleaser mask for everybody. When you're in a relationship and you show up with your mask, what do you think your partner's doing? Showing up with their mask. So you're not getting to the core of you. And that's sad to me. I think that's a lot of people.
And I've been in relationships where I show up with a mask because that's my superpower. The other person isn't. They're very authentic. They are themselves. But here's what happens generally is, after a little bit of time, usually not too long if it's a good, close relationship, they're like, but I thought you were this guy. They won't say it in those words, but there's like a confusion on their face. Well, in this situation, you were here, and over here, you're there. And it's similar, but it's not the same. And generally what happens in close relationships, they'll say, well, tell me something that really matters. Tell me something really deep and close to your heart. I don't know. Not
You're
anymore.
like, whoa, now you're
not anymore.
Now.
Yeah. Now I just start gushing. I probably overshare now, but
That's right.
you want to know? I'll tell you. Let's go.
Let me pour it all out here, like a fire hose.
You might regret that you asked, but I'm going to give it all to you anyway. Yeah.
So good.
But this journey that we're on, this very similar journey, I just want to applaud you for a couple things. One, your self-awareness and taking the steps necessary to break of the old patterns. But two, you're sharing it openly, because I don't know about you, Kristina, but I found the more I talk about what I was saying is I've been a public figure since I was little. I always liked being up front. I liked being a musician, the ham, the comedian, whatever. But that was all a show.
Right.
But now I'm finding, now that I'm very comfortable in public and I start to be open, authentic, vulnerable, sharing stories that are painful. Now, not only is that good for me, which it really is, it's healing me, but it's also opening the door for others who are like, really? You too?
Yeah.
You too? And I got people coming out of the woodworks going, I never was able to talk about this, but something that you said strikes me deep. And then they share a little bit, open the door to their story. Right. And I'm like, well, now I've got a purpose for my pain. Yeah. Now I realize that the suffering was all part of preparation to get me to this place where I can be the wounded healer of it, you might say, right?
Thanks, universe. Thanks for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the crazy part. I can actually feel a little bit of gratitude for the stuff that I always hated, parts that sucked. I can say, well, I don't like the feeling. I didn't like what I went through, but if that was for this purpose where I can help others heal, I survived. I'm good. Let's go, right?
And I think that there's something to when it gets repurposed, right? For me, I was the general. I took such pride in my head that, and no one knew this, right? Because no one knew my backstory. I hid it, guys. It was like not even my best friends knew what was going on. And I was like, look at me. Look at how far I came, which is a really good thing to say. But what I will say, which is interesting to me, is that I was still missing a piece because I couldn't show that vulnerable side. I didn't even know how to connect to it anymore because I was rewarding myself based on being quotation kick-ass strong and
absolutely. So this is where our story diverges a little bit, because you were rewarding yourself for being strong. I was actually getting rewarded by all the people around me, especially leaders, like leader, coach. They're all like, goes the star. He's getting good grades. He's doing good in sports. He's doing good music. So I was getting all the attaboys, all the accolades. So I was getting reinforced to actually be, it wasn't fake because it was authentically me, but it wasn't all of me. So this is why now I'm pursuing, instead of pursuing happiness, I'm pursuing wholeness, because I don't think I was faking anything. I just think I was only presenting a very small percentage of who I am. And it was the parts that were strong, that were happy, that were excellent, whatever. But I wasn't presenting the part of me that was hurt, that was confused, that was angry, that was upset. And I was really, in a sense, I was half human. I wouldn't go to anything that I thought was negative. I wouldn't go there. And I've almost convinced myself, I don't have to go there. I'm too strong for that, which is ridiculous, but it is the story I was telling myself.
Well, it's interesting because in my life, there was a dichotomy, right? So I had complete chaos to the age of 12, so much so that I was removed and put into foster care and then went to go live with my dad, with my brother. And when we had the restart, and this is going to link to what you said, but when we had the restart, nobody knew. I went from super, super poor, not having food and having to beg, to going to live with my dad, where I was the rich girl with horses on a farm. And I just showed up there and I got to start over. So when I got to start over, nobody knew anything. So it's interesting because this is just hitting me right now as we talk about it, is that when I was on my own in the middle of the chaos, I was the girl. This is how I survived it. I was the girl that would give myself praise. I would get a good mark on a test, and my apartment would be completely chaotic, just a mess. But my room would be my little sanctuary. And I would post my tests on the wall, and I'd be so pleased with myself. No one was
Yeah.
telling me, but I would be pleased that I got B or whatever.
Yeah.
But what happened when I pivoted to go to my dad's place? I went external all the way. I dropped the me and I went to everybody else. No one knows, it's a secret. I cannot let them know about this dark time. So interesting.
So I didn't have that transition. Excuse me. I didn't have that kind of physical transition, but boy, I can imagine what that was like. For me, I had the same dynamic, but it was happening at the simultaneously. So I go to school and I succeed in the classroom. I succeed on the field. I succeed in the youth group, music, all that kind of stuff. Then I go home and it's chaos. It's confusion. It's pain. It's a trailer park. I'm living in a trailer park. And so I didn't come to school telling everybody, hey, I'm living at the trailer park.
Yeah.
I would just go and act like I had everything together just like everybody else did. Of course, they were acting too, which I didn't know they were acting as well.
Yeah,
But they had
right.
it all together. Yeah.
So true. Oh my God.
So we're all doing our little acting thing, and I was really good at acting, because I'm very extroverted. And so I put on a great show. And again, it wasn't inauthentic. It wasn't fully me. It was just the parts I wanted people to see because I knew that they would give me the praise and the attaboys. And part of me is very grateful for that because, as my counselor said, I could have numbed my pain with drugs or with crime, or there's lots of other things I could have gone. The fact that I went to church and I went to youth group and I went to sports and music turned out to be a beautiful way to bring soothing.
Isn't
that was
that
my
amazing?
Sanctuary. Yeah, that was my sanctuary.
That's amazing.
That still serves me to this day.
Yeah,
but
so
it
great.
was just a place for me to just be part of me, not whole. So now as I pursue wholeness, I'm okay, and I can speak freely, as you know. I can speak freely about my trauma, my pain, and that kind of thing. And I don't wear it as a badge of honor so much, but as a story to say this is all of me, and all of this was necessary for me to get here. Right, the pain, the trauma, the sucky parts. That's as important to my story as the good parts, because if I take away any of that, I'm not talking to you right now, and I'm glad I'm talking to you right now.
Right. Well, can you imagine, like, honestly, this is why I'm enjoying this conversation, is because I'm talking to you, not the mask. I'm talking to Mojo. It's like, hey, yeah, man, that was a little bit crazy. Yeah, I know. Okay, well, what are we going to do now? Like,
totally.
So awesome.
Yeah. In many ways, I have this picture in my mind of like you and I are now maybe 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
And we're hanging out and we're playing and we're like, what's going on at your house? And you're just like, it's chaos. It sucks. I'm like, me too. All right, let's go. Let's go swing. Right? Let's go on the swings. All right, let's go.
Let's do it. I know.
But it's real life. It's just everything.
Oh my God. I would be so happy to have you as a friend when I was little. That's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I can picture right now. We're just sitting, we're on the swing side by side.
We would be at the park, because I would hide out at the park. Yeah. On the swings.
I can see us swinging side by side as high as, okay, how far can you leap off the swing? I don't know. Let's go.
Let's go. Oh, I better go back before it gets too crazy. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think in a sense, metaphorically, that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're like, hey, let's hang out. Let's tell stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then we'll swing. We'll just play. And it's fun.
And I'm so grateful for it, because I don't know if this happens for you, but I feel strong. And when I feel like all in, I'm like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Because there's such power in these experiences and these stories.
What you said right there is so important to me, because right here, right now, as I tell you the parts that I would generally hide most of my life, because I thought, well, nobody's going to like me if I tell them that part. You're like, I like people who tell me the truth about the icky parts too.
I love it.
So you just told me exactly what I need to hear over and over again. That you don't like me less because I have issues.
I actually like you more.
Yes, exactly. That's again, that's
true.
The story that I've been telling my whole life. The story we tell our whole life is people only like us if we're strong, if we're happy, if we're funny. That's not true. People like us because we're real, right?
Yeah,
Velveteen Rabbit. If you know the Velveteen Rabbit story.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah. So the arm thing. But so as I look back on the story, just as we're talking, the vision I got was I had one arm tied behind my back for much of my life, and I could really compensate with my right arm. I was strong, I was capable, but what I didn't realize is, what if I actually got to pull the left arm out, and how much stronger could I be? How much more capable could I be? The left arm was the one I hid from everybody because I didn't think it was attractive. Yeah. And now I bring both arms out and they're both strong, just in different ways.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the truth. People connect with the messy, the vulnerable, your stories. Like with me, when I show up and people hear my stuff, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. I go, you can't tell me anything that's going to phase me. That's not the mask. That's why it's like, even the stuff that we're doing, it's like so authentic that I really love that, because that's where we get to the truth of the matter. I don't need another lammed up, perfect kind of situation. I just need you. Show up and let's do this.
100%. Yeah. So you reminded me of a friend of mine came back from a men's conference.
Oh,
the speaker was phenomenal. And said speaker got, it was all guys in the room. So the speaker's like, he's like doing a cheer at the beginning of his talk. He says, how many of you want to be a great leader? Yeah, rah. How many of you want to be a great husband? Yeah. How many of you want to be a great father? Yeah. And he says, well, here's the truth, guys. You're not going to like this. He said, if you really want to love your wife and your kids, if you really want to be a great leader, he said, people connect most powerfully, most deeply at your points of weakness.
Yes.
And the air goes out of the room. What?
Yeah.
And all these guys are like, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be macho. I'm going to be the hero. Right. Yeah. And I'm going to be invulnerable. Yeah. And the guy says, different words than Brene Brown would say, the same thing. He says, humans connect most profoundly at their points of weakness, not their points of strength. So if you want to love your wife, you want to love your kids, you want to be a good boss, you got to show the weakness, because that's where people are going to be connected to you. And the whole room's like, bang!
Whoa! Well, and also that's where intimacy lies, right?
Yeah.
Into me, I see, right? So you see that
slow that down.
Into me, I see.
Wow. Never heard that before.
Well, it literally is that, right? If you're having intimacy with others, you're seeing into them, and intimacy with yourself. Into me, I see.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Words are the best.
It's so fun, because you're like, whoa.
Yeah, whoa. It's a mind shift. Just like,
okay. Thank you, Mojo. I love real, deep relationships. And you only get there when people are real. And what happens when you get really good at it, you can see when my BS meter goes up, and I can see right away when people are not real. But I can meet you where you're at. But look at the richness when you can have real conversations with people. It is beautiful, because you don't know who's walking away with some sort of nugget from whatever story was shared. Now I have another gem that's in line. I've got Lois here so Lois, come on up. Thank you for waiting. What are you thinking about this topic?
Wonderful. Yes. I'm surprised I hadn't heard the intimacy, But the thing is that when we actually see into others at the same time, it's a vibration.
That these are extremely powerful. And, like I said in the beginning, I hid mine for 30 years. Now just taking it down, look at what happens. Look at these conversations. They're the coolest conversations ever.
I tell my story in a way that empowers others and empowers myself, because I tell it from the victory end of it.
Yeah.
Not the victim end of it. And when you're able to tell your story from being the victor, because you're here. You're here now. You're the victor. Yeah. So start telling from that point of view. It will change your life, because you will rewrite. It's kind of like rewriting the history, because we're writing this stuff as we go along with our energy. Yeah. Change the energy of the story by telling it with different words, higher vibratory words and actions. And then your life will change, because you just changed that whole vibration from little Lois, from little Christine, little Chrissy. I can see you being little Chrissy. We changed that because we're telling it from a different stance. Yeah. So they're able to be to encompass all coming from a different angle with it.
And I would say this. So and tell me if this resonates with you, but when I started to open the door and I started to reconnect and really with these stories, I mean that there wasn't tears there. But there was like healing. Healing. Remember we talked about the tears before? For me, it's the hot tears. Those are healing tears. This is literally letting the energy start to shift Now it's beautiful because literally look at the energy shift. Now we're laughing and it doesn't hurt. And that's how you know you've healed. When you can share your story, not hurt you to share it, that means that you have shifted and you're in a place of empowerment.
Yes. Yeah. Victory. It's victory. It's like, it's not just you won when I'm going to say this again because maybe people in the back survived. Seriously. You were a survivor. You weren't just a victim who died. You survived it. So you won already. Now you have to put yourself to having victory over it by releasing those old energies about it and bringing in this new energy. And because you did survive and you won.
So can I add to that?
you
survived it. Don't hide it.
Oh, amen. I'm going to say amen. So be it.
Because just as Mojo was saying, and when you talk about it, the shame disperses. It doesn't exist. It doesn't win.
When you're holding the shame, it's like trapping the water behind the dam. The dam don't get to flow. The dam, the water will flow freely. So you're releasing yourself from being dammed up. Okay, I used to call it back to everything else.
Emotionally constipated. Yeah,
that's what I said. You're emotionally constipated. In a myriad of ways. Okay, we can trap it physically with eating, where we eat stuff that constipates us and holds us back from releasing. But most stuff we have more over its release, and it's being held back, and it's all in a word called forgiveness.
Ooh, forgiveness is the gateway. It's the gateway. That's where I want to be. Like, healing does not have to be scary. Healing can be fun. It can be real. It can just be in a place where you just have to have the courage, the first steps to start talking about it, getting it out.
You got to let that issue go, okay? You got for your growth. You got to release it and allow it to fertilize human growth potential. That's what fertilizer is for. And yes, it's crappy. It stinks. Okay, because I ain't never heard about it. And everybody smells different. And mine don't stink. Yeah, right. Okay. That's and the life term. That was a lie. Okay. Everybody got some stinky stuff in them. But if you release, oh my God, that fertilizer is going to give you maximum growth potential. It is letting the energy, how effective it is. Okay. You would think that your child passing or I like to say transitioning because she's still with me. You would think that would just the world. But I knew when she died suddenly that I was propelled into darkness immediately. I was buried under the and it felt like a whole lot of ish was on top of me when that happened. But I said, God, allow me to go through this with grace. Allow me to grieve with I got pulled back down deep. Only for me, when I was able to release it, oh my God, jettisoned into a space I've never been. And this was just 3 years ago. And I was talking like this 3 years ago, but not like this.
Right. And
what I have now is totally different. And because I was allowed my release and embrace the change. And I was blessed, Kristina, because all the synchronicities, the numbers and all that stuff was there with her. And I knew that it was just, that's why I figured, help me be able to deal with this. And because I understood this releasing, that releasing the crap fertilize you for growth, I've propelled myself in places that I couldn't even have dreamed of. Okay, I'm gonna be real.
Yeah. And those things when you stop resisting it, and it's a part of our human experience and challenge. It's about your perspective. It's about living. It's about you're going to have your death, happiness, sadness if you're living, right?
So I look at it like this: you are a seed pod, okay?
Okay.
And after a while, need to come out of the shell. And in order for seed to come out of the shell, be put off on the inside. Okay, so you feel just uncomfortable. And if you saw the seed busting and coming through the thing in slow motion photography, it looks very violent. Okay. And we all are these seedlings going through this process. And sometimes it hurts for us to stretch out. You have an intention to change. You have an intention to grow. And you know that growing requires you busting through uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable places, doing uncomfortable things because that's the unknown. That's how we grow. We grow step by step. And even though we think we're walking the same steps that we walked yesterday, it's not, because I know in a day I walk and do a whole lot of walking and I never trace my steps.
Right.
Okay. So everything is new. So everything is always not crossing the river in place twice because you've moved all the first time.
Right.
You
well,
know?
and you're wiser. This is how wisdom emerges, right? It's intellect and experience. That's wisdom.
That's right. Let the stuff get married. And it brings balance to you. And it brings balance to the little Lois and the big Lois. Okay. Balance to your life. It brings balance in your family. It brings balance in your relationship. So I see change as a very positive thing. Yet
the word for me would be integration. It's when you integrate all these parts of yourself as one, stories that you're all are going to be very different. The goal is to in all parts of yourself so you can live alignment.
That's right. And that's how the balance comes. Because you're not saying, oh, I can't talk about that. That was too icky. I can't talk about that. People jealous because I used to be that person. Hide my accomplishments. Oh my God.
Not anymore.
I told somebody, I told somebody I was a janitor. Okay. Cause I didn't want this. Oh my God. I laugh at myself now because every time I told somebody what I did for a living, they would flake and would tell them a lie. And, and I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? If they can't handle then they can't handle me. So what am I thinking the phone for? Because they look good. Somebody introduced me to them and they're doing very well in life. Then I had to learn what real compassion was. And it started with me not allowing that person to step on my foot and
right.
Okay.
Right.
Because I would tell everybody else, say ouch. And then I heard myself one day. I was giving somebody something to say, you need everything that you're giving away. So now take everything that you're giving to everybody else.
Woo! That's good stuff.
And so when I did that, this is way back when I was 35, I'm 63 now. And at 35. So everything from that point on, and 35 had lived a lot of life. I gave myself everything that I was giving. Where now I don't even give it out unless I've already got it for myself.
That's the way. You got to operate from overflow. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, that's actually really
exactly.
Good.
And because before I would actually do it while I'm doing it. And I never allowed it to build up enough for me. Okay. So when I won't say stop, and I couldn't do that without having compassion for myself by putting down boundaries and saying here and no further. Not on my part.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I don't think so. Okay, instead of saying, oh, well, I'll just take whatever you got.
Yeah. Thanks for your scraps. Thanks. I'll take that. Okay. Oh, I'm so lucky.
I don't care how good the bargain is. And that's, it's like making those.
That's a lesson right there. Hear that out.
You're making those little things. Okay. So,
yes. Oh my goodness. Lois, thank you so much, Lois. Oh my God. Every story is unique. It's actually your superpower, but it's how you connect and inspire with it, how you connect with the story and be inspired by your story that really makes a difference. It's what makes you authentic. It's how you live authentically, and it empowers others to do the same. So today, what we heard with our guests, I loved today's conversations because they're real. And you can see that people have come past pain in order to talk about their stories and connect with their stories and understand that there is beauty in their story. And the story that they had when, and myself included, that we had when we are young is not necessarily the same story that we have now as an adult. So there's an opportunity there to really think about what story are you telling yourself and does it really serve you well? So I'll challenge you today to reflect on your story. What chapters need to be rewritten? Is it your childhood chapter? Is it midlife chapter? Is it when you went to high school chapter? What chapters need to be celebrated? And most importantly, how can you step into your truth more and more? Maybe we just need to do a full rewrite, and that's okay. But it's looking at your situation not from a place of victimhood, but in a place of power. And when we are empowered, we can do great things. When we are empowered, we are not isolated anymore. We are stepping forward and we are grounded in who we are. And I think that that ripples and in fact, it inspires others to embrace their own truth and start rewriting their narratives and really starting to live a life of purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and behind the scene contents. And if you have any suggestions about future topics or guests, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, stay curious, keep learning, and never stop exploring the fascinating world around you. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.